or it is a blueprint, when everything will be clear, crystal clear. If the management says the planning done means hard work done. If you did your plan in a good way, that means you complete your job over. Then now you have to follow that what has to be done on after planning done means then your calendar of work has also been done. So when you're preparing for ERS exam, also I hope that you have your own plan according you are preparing. So research design also like this way. It is a detailed plan and blueprint. The research design to provide you the answer of the research questions. How will achieve, how to fulfill the, how will test the hypothesis, that will give an idea, or to control the variance. That it control the variance, external variance, improve the internal variance. The research design suggests the researchers how to collect for the data for the test of hypothesis, which variables should be treated as control variables, and what method of manipulations will be relevant in a particular situations, and what type of statistical test to be performed. It depends based on the research design. So you must have a great comprehension about this research design, a strong comprehension about the research design. Mainly, there are several types of research design are there. Apart from that, the exploratory formulate research design. The main part of the research design is to formulate a problem, more precise investigation, or to develop a working hypothesis. For the first time it is coming, suppose sometime we are studying that livestock rearing, dairy farming practices. Everybody is doing dairy farming practices, but sometimes when doing some ethnic people, tribe, or any pastoral nomads, then we are putting an exploratory study. The first time that first-hand information will come out, because hypothesis will fixed based on the body of the theory. If past literature is not there, then how it put on hypothesis? So exploratory research generally used to do the explore the first-hand information. The pilot study is conducted prior to the investigation. Suppose if it is utmost necessary to put an hypothesis, then you have to do a pilot study. Based on the findings of the pilot study, you get a hypothesis. Then many times it is question asked that which type of research that hypothesis should not necessary. That is the exploratory research study. That is first-hand information we used to get it. Then the descriptive or diagnostic research design. A descriptive research design is used for the fact finding with adequate interpretation. That means we are analyzing the data, and then we are try to improve the casual relationship within the variables and try to interpret why high level of measurements are high level of adoption is there, why low level of adoption is there. Try to interpret. Diagnostic research design means which variable is concerned about these things. That means when do the hypothesis, then which significant is coming, then we are interpreting accordingly that these variables. That means that land holding or productivity of the crops has the significant impact in the socio-economic status of the farm family. From the we are diagnosing it and find out the relationship. Here the hypothesis is the must. Another one is people used to ask that about that ex post facto research design, maybe descriptive research designs. The researcher in which the events have taken place prior undertaking the investigations fall under this category of research. So I took an example that means adoption of scientific dairy farming practices. That already it happened, the training or other variable when we do not have any chance to manipulate our independent variable, then we are doing the ex post factor. Many of the extension research where we are not using the experimental designing the research, then it is all about the ex post factor research design. Here, researcher has no scope to manipulate the independent variable as they have already been occurs. Then many times question has been asked that who terminology is coined and that ex post factor research. Probably the Chapin has been renewed, or Chapin probably has been given the because I have already passed out 15 years back. So who give this terminology? Sometimes it is beyond our mind. Probably the Greenwood or Chapin has given the terminology that ex post factor research design. Next is that in ex post research design are two types: ex post facto cause to effect research design and ex post facto effect to cause research design. That means cause to effect and effect to cause. Try to understand. Sometimes question are asked which type of research design means. Here the presumed cause as the independent variable. Presumed cause. Suppose I am giving the training and then assuming that it will have some impact on the scientific dairy farming practices. It was assumed. That means I select the sample two category, experimental control, those who undergone the training and those who did not undergo the training programs. Here my assume cause is the training program. See, the training program has already been happened. Again, I took the sample. Suppose if you have been asked, suppose any beneficiary program, suppose that what is that empowerment of the rural farmers or rural women due to the MG Narega. That means you have to select a sample, two categories. Those who have the beneficiary of the MG Narega and those who not have, not the beneficiaries. That here treatment is that with experimental group, those who undergone the have the beneficiary. Means take participation or take the benefit of the MG Narega, then we are seeing their livelihood status, and then we say that both the categories are different are there, and because of the generally experimental group are there higher because they have participated in the MG Narega. Next is just the opposite. It have presumed effect. Suppose here I am seeing that MG Narega, is there any effect on the livelihood? Then my livelihood with the independent variables, I have to select the sample in the matched in the same category, and then I have to in the two different way. Then the livelihood will be considered independent and MG Narega as a dependent variable. Then we need to see that is there an effect on the livelihood or not. Means effect to cause and cause to effect. But remember, this is not the experimental. Though we have to do experimental control group, means those who have already beneficiary, program has already been over, or training program is already been over. So from there we are selecting the sample, because we can easily get the data, those who have the job card, those who have do not have the job card in the village itself. From there we can select the experimental group or the control group. Next is the come in the experimental research. It's much important because many times now students or researchers are in extension research are doing the experimental research. We already started doing the experimental research because we are doing a cosmopolite environment. Cosmopolite means a different subjects. There people used to think about that research without control group is how it can be the research or impact or output. So we already started it. That means experimental research design is the observation under the control condition. The experimental research deal about the examination of the effect of independent variable on the dependent variable. Suppose I'm planning that to improve the livelihood of the dairy farmers through adoption of scientific dairy farming practices. So I may give transfer of technology or I may give the training. So here my independent variable may be the transfer of technology. It may be that independent variable that number of training programs they should be exposed. Where the independent variable is manipulated. Remember, still we discussed about the non-experimental. There we do not have that those who are undergone training or have the another MG Narega job card, we do not have any options. But here, which technology I will give to my farmers and how many trainings I will give farmers and which area I will give them, that is depends on the researcher. I can manipulate it. This is in experimental research. The effect of the intervention is observed on the dependent variable. It will be observed and accordingly we will see it. It is a very, very important aspect to remember for the ARS purpose, that principle of max min con control principle. Generally, it is used to say that max min con, that small short form, the max min con, that maximum, minimum, and control. That maximizing the external experimental variance. That means I am giving to improve the livelihood of the farmer through training program. That means the livelihood will be improved through the training program. That means other extraneous variable has to be controlled. Other external variable means suppose they may have that different occupation, they have different land holding, they have different breed. So when the selection will be there, my sample, it should be the same category. So I will select that only landless farmer, smallholder dairy farmers, of the indigenous dairy farm. So therefore, some extraneous variable will be exposed. Then I can see, I can tell them this is improvement is there due to this training program, such type of training programs, and minimize the error variance. The error should be minimized. Error generally sampling we do randomization we used to do. So remember this. What has to be do? Maximize have to do the experimental variance. We have to minimize the error variance, and we have to control the extraneous variance. And another three principles are there of the experimental research. Everybody you know that is that about that what is called that randomization, replication, and the local control. This also be applied in extension research. Within this experimental research, there are three categories of that: true experimental research, quasi-experimental research, and pre-experimental research. True experimental research means where the research have the full control about the extraneous variables. This means the laboratory situations. We do not have any other factors. The farmer does not have the other source of income. After training the 2 दिन वो लेबर का काम कर लिया, वा दूसरा काम कर लिया, उसमें means control experiment that you should do. Can predict confidently the observed effect of the dependent variable is only to the manipulation of the independent variables. Generally, it's a laboratory condition. It is possible, or the and the means the laboratory or either the controlled environment. Suppose in our research farm, and we used to do. And there it is that three categories are there: that manipulation means replication and control and the randomization. That what is called that the three principles of that true experimental research, that randomization, replication, as well as that local control. Manipulation means the replications. The how many time treatment, what will you give it? I will not go to the details. And the control means the control the extraneous variable and to improve the internal variance. And the randomization means selecting the sample through randomly used. It will eliminate the bias itself. I will not go to the details of this. Any books we can go details of this. And the different type of true experimental research are there. Maybe the pre-test, post-test, pre-test, post-test only, Solomon 4 groups only, crossover, randomized block, factorial designs are there. Because each, if I take the each time, it will take a long time to discuss that. Pre-test, post-test means that we select the sample, it will randomly have to select, and that experimental group and control group will be there, and we'll give the treatment to the control experimental group, and we'll do only the post-test for the both the group, control group and experimental group. We'll do the pre measurement we should not have, and then we see the measurement post-test difference between control group and experimental group, and we say that is the impact. Suppose I took an example here, that impact of the farm advisories during COVID-19 pandemic on the mental health of the farming community of the transgenetic plain region of India. Because here we do not have the possible to measure the pre-data. कोविड से पहले हमने कोई डाटा लिया नहीं, क्योंकि हमें किसी को पता ही नहीं था जब कोविड विल कम, मार्च 2020 के बाद कोविड विल कम, चलो डाटा ले लो, डाटा ले लो. We do not take the data. So this particular case now अभी हमें कुछ फार्मर लेना है, उसके बाद किसी को एडवाइजरी देंगे, किसी को एडवाइजरी नहीं देंगे, then we may say this is particular will take a control group. And post data, then we say that if we have that difference between control group experimented is the effect of our farm advisory services. Next is that next is the pre-test, post-test only the control design. That means where we'll take both that will before measurement, before testing, and before giving the treatment we are having one measurement, and after testing treatment also measurement. Test treatment will be given to the control group only, not the experimental group only, not the control group. And we will see the difference, because within the time period itself some certain change will be there. Suppose here the effectiveness of mobile app or the adoption of eco-friendly dairy farming by the farmers of the Eastern Haryana. We studied it because that we are giving some information to the farmer 6 months, 1 साल तक हमें देते रहा through app के माध्यम से. But due to this certain one year, several apps may come, several newspapers people used to get information. So that means that within certain time के साथ people's everything can be changed. So therefore, if we take a pre-test and post-test, and if we minimize it, then we will get the effect on the based on the treatment itself for the experimental group, and from the if we then from the minus from the experimental to the control group, then we will get due to the treatment only for the mobile advisories. Because for the experimental group, what we will get the data, we will get the change due to mobile app as well as that information due to the changing timing. Both effect will be there. But control group will get the effect only due to the time change. So that will, when that will minus from the control group, will give only the effect of the mobile app. This way we may quantify it. Next is that quasi-experimental research design. Because sometimes in our extension research, it is difficult to have it is difficult to have the pure control over the three factors, that is that replication, local control, or the randomizations. If anything, any of this parameter hampered, then we'll say it is a quasi-experimental. Quasi-experimental is a semi-type. That means anything, any of these three principles, randomization, local control, or replication, anything is hampered, then sometimes it is not possible to filter either anything, the total control, the local control, to the randomization of the data, because all the times, suppose if I select a farmers, 20 farmers of particular villages, suppose last week I went to Gene for my own research project on mobile advisory services, the climate advisory services for the Muravapela farmers. For the 20 farmers we selected, when we talk, that everybody is not willing to take the response message in their mobile. They told that no, it is very boring that every day you will send the message, we will read it. That means they are not willing. So then we replace the farmer with the others. So sometimes we have to compromise with the randomization or other any of the three principles. So therefore, it is better in our extension research. More appropriate is that quasi-experimental research designs. That means the manipulation independent variable to observe effect on dependent variable lacks at least one of the two characteristics: the true experimental design, randomization, or the control group. This is true in the quasi-experimental design. That is the difference. That first one you see in this here, we do not have the randomizations, non-equivalent treatment and control groups. We have the experimental group and the control group, but here we select the farmer not based on the randomizations. We select the farmers and then we are studying it. Suppose impact of climate resilient agriculture practices or rice variety in improving livelihood of the farmers of the coastal Odisha. So there we are selecting the farmer not the randomized, but selecting some purposive sampling. Those who are willing to accept this climate resilient practices in their farm and they may apply, we may select. So therefore we have the purposive sampling. Pure random sampling was not there. So here we have effect, but we fix the other two criteria, that control, local control, as well as the replication. That means we are giving that how many treatment will give, that how many practices will give them to, and how many days this is replication. Then it is coming that non-equivalent control and experimental design. Next is that absence of the experimental design. We used to have that one-shot case study. That is generally called the pre-experimental design.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So your slides are not moving.
Okay. Which slide you are seeing in the screen?
Yes, sir.
Now it is what you are seeing in your screen?
So pre-experimental
Experimental
research.
research.
Experimental. That means the absence of characteristics of the true experimental research design. Generally, it's called the one-shot case design or one group pre-test post-test design. Take an example. Suppose the control experimental group, treatment, and post-test. These the pre-experimental design, that one case or case studies and one group pre-test post-test design. If you go through this Kallinger book, Kallinger himself is telling these are the faulty research design and it should not be never followed, because without control group, any research design cannot be formulated as an experimental research design. So himself told. So, but for exam purpose, you remember they are the faulty research design. That if the question has been asked, which is the weakest research design, have been given the options: one-shot case studies, pre-post control experimental research design, other thing, then you definitely will put the tick on that one-shot case design, the weakest research designs. Or if they ask the strongest research design, way eliminate this one-shot case study as the weakest research design. That means here we do the experimental group and there will be given treatment and the post-test only. Suppose the impact of immediate direct cash transfer benefit on the shock minimization among the victim of the Amphan extremely severe cyclone storm in the southern Bengal. Amphan was there, so we cannot have that. Certain time we used to have this type of research design as we use, but it should be avoided, because this certain condition, who will give the treatment, that those who will not the direct cash benefit but having the what is called that Amphan affected, because government is giving to all the direct cash benefit those who have affected the Amphan, and so it will be very difficult for you to get the control farmers, those who affected but did not receive that Amphan. And but here the pre data is not there, because Amphan is projected only 2 or 3 days before, so it is not possible to on the time take the data. So the only we are getting the post-test data that we are getting. That means those who are memorizing their database, what was the previous one and after this one, and accordingly we are analyze it. Next is that pre-test and post-test only. That means we are taking previously experimental group and then taking example that effective our disaster management strategies on improving adaptive capacity of the coastal farming community on the eastern coastal region. So here our control group, because all of the coastals and them only these adaptation strategies are exclusive for the coastal only. So we cannot take the farmers from the other regions, because this practice which will be advocate, that will not be applicable for them. So sometimes people are using these things, but what Kalinga told, these are the faulty and research design, it should not be followed. Now the question is that for the extension purpose, what should be the best research design, though it is not directly related to you. So last come to this part, that is that DID, that difference quasi experimental or sometimes experimental research designs. Here both the control group will be there and experimental group will be there. Pre-test measurement will be there and post-test measurement will be there. That C0 means it is the pre-test measurement of the control group, and D0 is the measurement of the pre-test measurement of the experimental group. And after a certain time, where this is the horizontal line is the giving the treatment, and then you see that to the treatment group. So therefore, the treatment group it is effective. So from the dot line to it is come the D1. The difference between dot line to D1, it is called the treatment effect. It is called the treatment effect, and the C0 to come to C1 within the time frame itself, and then it is C1. So that means we will minus C0 minus C1, the C1 minus C0. The effect will be there like this way: D1 minus D0 and C1 minus C0. An experimental group pre-test means and post-test. Post-test is the D1, pre-test will be the D0. And here in the control group, post-test will be the C1 and pre-test will be the C0. So then it will be that. And here the D1 minus D0 is the treatment effect. That is, we will get this is here both thing has been. It is a gold standard model. Many field studies people are using this